Right now at 4:30, a live look outside the Manhattan courtroom where closing arguments in Donald Trump's historic hush money trial are still underway. The prosecution started around 2 this afternoon and say they are about a third of the way through. The judge says that they'll take another break an hour from now at 5:30. And once the prosecution wraps, it'll be up to the jury to decide if the former president is guilty of the 34 charges of falsifying business records. Now, earlier today, there was some controversy during the defense's closing arguments. Attorney Todd Blanche's attack on Michael Cohen here to the jury, saying that then he came in here, he raised his right hand, and he lied to each of you repeatedly. You cannot send someone to prison. You cannot convict somebody based upon the words of Michael Cohen. Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes joins us now, and Khalif, Judge Juan Merchan, he did not like the comment by
Merchan didn't like it at all. The prosecutor didn't like it, objected immediately. The jury was removed out of the courtroom, which I think Merchan did an excellent job of doing that. Early on in this trial, he said, listen, if you have an objection, I don't want it argued in front of the jury. I want them to only hear the facts of the case, get removed out. We can talk about these off topic. And that's what he did. He got them out of the room and he tore into Blanche. He said, listen, you know this because you're a former prosecutor, as a highly respected criminal defense attorney. Those type of statements where you're talking about the potential punishment has no place. It was clearly improper because the jury won't make that determination. The judge will. So that's not even their charge. For you to say that to try to get a sympathy out of the jury was out of line, clearly. And I mean, Merchan,
was he playing to his client there, Donald Trump?
100%. I mean, but you're 3 hours into this thing, right? I mean, these are 3 to 3.5 hour summations. There's no more playing than that. I mean, most of my closings are like 10 minutes, 5 minutes maybe. You know, the prosecutors will go a long time because they have these, lengthy PowerPoint presentations. But a criminal defense attorney is going to just lay out the facts that they didn't say, lay out a smooth and sensational closing and get out of the way. This case, his closing was longer than some of the witnesses have testified. So, yes, I think it was dancing for his client. But at the end of the day, it was not needed. I think he did a good job laying out the holes that were in the prosecutor's case. That last part was a waste. And so if folks were sleeping, I'm clearly sure they woke up at that last moment, and it didn't really help. It didn't advance the argument, which was, I think, wasted breath.
Okay, wasted breath. Does it have an impact on the jury? Because jury has got their instructions right now. They're going to go back and deliberate here. And what plays out? How do you think this is going to be? Because have they already made up their minds? And also, what happens with that? The jury going back and forth because there's a lot of give and take and a lot of sway by some of the jurors in there.
Excellent question. A lot of times after a trial, I'll talk to a juror, and I'll ask the judge, Your Honor, can we have permission to talk to the jury? And the jury sometimes will stay, sometimes they won't. Maybe we'll get 5, maybe we'll get 10, but getting an opportunity to see where their mindset is. I had one time where a juror said, you know what, going into closing, I was thinking guilty. And then as soon as you guys close, you know what, I was persuaded. And so sometimes folks don't make up their mind, but sometimes they've already had their mind made up. It really just depends on jurors. But I will say this, I've said it here before, if you talk long, most of the time you will talk wrong. If you got folks falling asleep, I'm not a body science expert, but what I can tell you is you need folks to be paying attention. And if they're sleeping, dozing off, rocking back and forth, you've probably lost them. And whatever you said in 3 hours probably could have been said in an hour. For the prosecution side, they have boxes they got to check. You got to make sure that you laid out the requirements, you laid out your whole case. And so I can understand them going for a long time. But 4 hours, even for them, is a problem. So I think both sides are kind of a loss because this is just a waste of a day. You want the last things for them to remember was Cohen's testimony. You want the last things for, if you're the defense attorney, to remember is your rebuttal witness. Other than that, they really don't have much to say. So I think today was a loss for both because if I'm a juror sitting there, I'm like, are you done yet? We've been here for 5 weeks. What else do you have to say? It's time for us to get in the room. Let us go and deliberate.
The verdict in this case is going to have major implications going forward, one way or the other, especially if it's a guilty verdict against the former president.
Yeah, and that's the thing that it's not like a one size fits all thing. There's a number of scenarios. It can be a guilty verdict. It can be a hung jury. It could be a not guilty, which I think is the furthest thing from what will happen here. I think a hung jury is something that could likely happen because you're looking at, did they prove that that he had intention to defraud the government, specifically hiding and moving around these payments? If he had no intention, the government failed to prove their case. And that's the hardest burden. They listed 3 allegations where they believe the state that he did that. If one juror says, you know what, I don't think that happened, this case kind of crumbles right there. And so, again, I wish that they would have flushed out a lot more of this time on throwing up witnesses as opposed to using it in summation.
Quickly, we'll have to see there. Could he serve jail time real quick?
I doubt it. That would be something that a lot of stuff has been blowing my mind. That would be catastrophic for sure.
We'll have to see how it plays out later this week with the trial. All right, Khalif Rhodes, thanks.